You know those did you know facts that make you go, whoa, really? Well, get ready for one because we're diving into a story that'll make you see squirrels in a whole new light.
Ooh, I love those kind of stories. What's this one about?
We're talking about a straight-up bizarre encounter between a squirrel and a woodpecker that left even scientists scratching their heads.
Okay, now that's got me curious what happened.
So picture this: Ithaca, New York, March 26, 1974.
All right, going way back.
Yeah, way back. Researchers B.J. Rathke and R.W. Poole, they're observing a bird feeder near a large white pine.
Classic nature scene.
Right? Total nature vibes. But then they see something totally unexpected. They see a red squirrel attacking a pileated woodpecker.
Wait, hold up. A squirrel attacking a woodpecker? Those woodpeckers are huge. Like, what was the squirrel thinking?
Right. That's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. It's like something out of a cartoon, but it's actually documented in a scientific journal called the Wilson Bulletin.
The Wilson Bulletin, all right, very official.
Yeah.
So how did it all go down?
Okay, so you've got your classic bird feeder set up right round, with seeds scattered on the ground. A red squirrel comes scampering down the pine tree trunk, heading straight for the feeder. But then it spots a pileated woodpecker hanging out near the base of the tree.
I think the squirrel would just grab a snack and move on, right?
Exactly. You'd think so.
Yeah.
But that's where things get weird. The squirrel starts making these aggressive little lunges towards the woodpecker like it's trying to intimidate the bird.
And the woodpecker, what does it do?
Oh, the woodpecker's not backing down. It throws its head back, raises its crest, lifts, and spreads its wings slightly. Like it's saying, don't even try it, squirrel.
Wow, so a little standoff.
Yeah, it's already getting dramatic.
Yeah.
And then the squirrel does something even crazier.
What'd it do?
It runs to the other side of the tree, grabs some seeds, and then get this, runs back up the tree, comes back down on the woodpecker's side, and literally jumps onto the woodpecker's breast.
No way, it actually went for it. What happened next?
It was over in a flash. The whole thing was super brief and silent, according to the researchers. Then, just like that, the woodpecker breaks free, flies up into another tree.
And the squirrel?
The squirrel, oh, it's totally fine, runs up the pine, starts chattering away like nothing happened.
Wow. That's wild. You know, the fact that the woodpecker even did that whole threat display thing is really interesting.
Yeah.
Like it saw the squirrel as a real threat, not just some annoying little critter. Birds usually try to avoid conflict at all costs unless they absolutely have to.
Totally makes you wonder, was this just like a random squirrel freakout, or was there something more going on there?
So the researchers who saw this whole thing, they actually had some theories about what might have been going on.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Like what could possibly explain a squirrel attacking a woodpecker?
Well, one idea is that the bird feeder itself might have played a role.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, you've got this unnatural concentration of food, right? Bringing together all these different species that wouldn't normally interact so closely.
Like a squirrel and woodpecker turf war over the birdseed buffet.
Exactly. The bird feeder could up the competition for resources, even between animals that wouldn't typically see each other as rivals.
And remember, the squirrel was heading straight for that feeder when it first spotted the woodpecker.
Right, so maybe it was already feeling a little possessive of its food source?
Basically, the squirrel was having a hangry moment.
Hmm.
But what about territoriality in general? Could that have been a factor?
Oh, for sure. Squirrels are super territorial, especially when it comes to their food stashes and their nesting sites.
Even though we don't know if the squirrel had a nest nearby or anything.
Right, but it's possible it considered that whole area around the feeder its domain.
And the woodpecker, just by being there, was seen as a threat.
Exactly. Like, think of it this way. It's like someone parking in your assigned parking spot.
Ooh, yeah, that's infuriating.
Right. It's a violation of your personal space, and it can trigger a strong reaction, even if the other person didn't mean any harm.
But in this case, the reaction was a little more intense than just a honk of the horn. This squirrel went full-on attack mode.
True. But we have to remember that animals don't always see threats the same way we do. What might seem like an overreaction to us could be a perfectly reasonable defense strategy for a squirrel.
So we've got food guarding territoriality as possible explanations, but the researchers also threw out some other even more surprising motives, right?
They did. They mentioned curiosity and even playfulness as possible factors, which I find really interesting.
Hold on, a squirrel attacking a woodpecker out of curiosity? How does that even work?
Well, think about squirrels for a second. They're always exploring, getting into everything.
True, they're little balls of energy.
Exactly. Maybe the squirrel had never seen a pileated woodpecker up close before and wanted to investigate.
Like a hey big bird, what's up? Whoa. Why are you pecking me? This isn't fun kind of thing.
Yeah. Its way of investigating might have been a little too rough for the woodpecker to handle.
What about the playfulness angle?
Hmm.
Are you saying squirrels just have a messed up sense of fun?
Well, squirrels are known for being playful, right? Chasing each other, wrestling, all that.
True. They're like the little clowns of the animal kingdom.
Exactly. Maybe the squirrel saw the woodpecker as a potential playmate, and its idea of a good time involved a little more physical contact than the woodpecker was expecting.
Okay, that's actually hilarious, but I kind of feel bad for the woodpecker. It was probably just trying to enjoy a peaceful snack.
Right, but that's the thing about animal behavior. It doesn't always fit into our neat little human categories of like aggression or play. What looks like an attack to us could just be a clumsy attempt at interaction from the squirrel's point of view.
You're blowing my mind here. This is giving me a whole new appreciation for how complex animal communication can be.
It's not always as black and white as we think.
Hmm.
And even though we may never know for sure what was going on in that squirrel's head, the fact that this happened at all, it really challenges our assumptions about how different species interact.
It also makes you wonder about the woodpecker's experience. Like, why didn't it just fly away immediately? What was going through its head during that whole encounter?
That's a great question. We've been so focused on the squirrel that we haven't really thought about the woodpecker side of things.
Yeah.
And I think that could hold some really interesting clues about how animals respond to these unexpected threats.
So let's try and get inside the woodpecker's head for a minute. Here's this powerful bird, right? It can fly. It's got that beak that can drill through wood. Why didn't you take off at the first sign of trouble?
Well, it's easy to think that fly away would be the obvious response. But for a woodpecker, things might not be so simple.
Like, what could possibly be more important than avoiding getting hurt?
Well, remember the woodpecker did that whole threat display thing at first?
Right, raising its crest, throwing back its head.
Exactly. It was trying to communicate.
So instead of running away, it tried to stand its ground.
It's possible. Maybe woodpeckers in their evolutionary history, they just haven't encountered this kind of squirrel behavior often enough.
So it's not a common enough threat for them to have like a pre-programmed reaction.
Right. And also, think about a woodpecker's lifestyle. They're always hammering on trees.
Which probably makes them a target sometimes.
Yeah. They probably attract attention, maybe even some aggression from other animals every now and then.
So they're used to a little confrontation.
Exactly. They might have a higher tolerance for those kinds of aggressive displays.
At least at first.
Right, like they've evolved to deal with it.
Okay, that's interesting. So maybe the woodpecker saw the squirrel's initial lunges and thought, okay, little guy, I've seen worse. Back off.
Yeah.
But then the squirrel took things way too far.
And that's where things get really interesting. Why didn't the woodpecker fly away when the squirrel actually made contact?
Yeah.
It's hard to say for sure, but I wonder if it was kind of a mix of surprise and instinct.
Okay, break that down for me.
First of all, that squirrel's attack was super fast.
Yeah, the researcher said it was brief and silent.
Exactly. It all probably happened in just a few seconds. The woodpecker might not have even had time to register what was going on.
So like pure shock value.
Right. And then on top of that, you've got the woodpecker's instincts kicking in. When an animal feels trapped, sometimes the best defense is to fight back.
Even if it's just for a second to create a chance to escape.
Exactly.
So even though the squirrel was smaller, the woodpecker might have felt like it had no other choice but to try and defend itself.
It's definitely a plausible explanation. And ultimately, that brief struggle was all it took for the woodpecker to get free and fly to safety.
You know, this whole story, it really shows you how much we still don't know about the lives of even the most familiar animals. We see a squirrel, we see a woodpecker, and we think we've got them all figured out. But then something like this happens, and it just totally throws all our assumptions out the window.
It's a good reminder that nature is full of surprises. And even in our own backyards, there are these mysteries just waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. Who knows what other strange encounters are happening out there just waiting for someone to see them and document them.
Right.
So to everyone listening, next time you're out in nature, keep your eyes peeled. You never know what kind of crazy animal behavior you might witness.
Oh, yeah.
And if you do see something weird, don't just brush it off. Take note. Ask questions. Maybe you'll be the one to uncover some new and fascinating piece of the animal kingdom.
Exactly. And hey, maybe you'll see another squirrel taking on a woodpecker. I know, I'd love to see more research on that.
Me too. But until then, we'll just have to keep our imaginations running wild. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of squirrel-on-woodpecker aggression.
It's been a trip.
It really has. Always happy to explore the unexpected side of nature.
Absolutely.